Acting Class Weekly with legendary character actor Sean Whalen. Lessons, tips, and insight into the craft and business of acting from a man who's been directed by the likes of Spielberg, Eastwood, Tim Burton, Ang Lee, Michael Bay, Wes Craven, Tom Hanks, and many more of Hollywood's A-list. He is 30 years an actor and your professor, Sean Whalen.
Roxy? I didn't know it was a fist bump. I didn't know
You didn't know it was a fist bump. What happens when somebody puts your fist in your face and isn't trying to punch you?
I don't know. But knowing you might have been trying
I'm from
to punch
Boston.
Me. You are from Boston. They're a little spicy over there.
Yeah, we're spicy.
But bright blue jacket. Why? Because we're talking about producing today, and I feel producers are snazzy. So I wear the fancy jacket.
I thought you were going to say it's because we have two very special guests in studio and you were trying to impress them.
They are not ever going to be impressed with me.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, they're good friends, so I don't think so. We have two very special guests, two big names in the independent cult film world. Jason Trost, a friend I've known for, we just figured out, 11 years, and his producing partner, Tallay Wickham, and they also happen to be betrothed.
Whoa.
Yes.
Just happened to be.
Just happened to be.
That'll be another podcast.
That's a whole other podcast.
They share a world,
They
Sean.
share. We actually share with me and my girlfriend. We both had to deal with long distance for several years. Ours was 2. How long was yours?
2.
Two as well?
But Australia.
Yeah, that was Australia.
Ours was
Mine
like 7,000
Pittsburgh.
miles. Yours was like 5 states.
Yeah, exactly.
You thought you were actually, gonna have something to compete with there.
Yeah.
Australia trumps.
It was
Come
really
on.
hard because they'd only see each other like every weekend,
Oh, you know what? You guys would see each other for like 6 weeks at a time.
and then not see each other for 6 weeks at a time.
Wow, I feel bad for all of you guys who are in love with beautiful people and in fantastic relationships. Yes, that is so hard for all of you. Yes, for sure.
What a great way to introduce Miss Phenomenal Roxy Striar.
Miss Phenomenally Single Roxy Striar. Yes, thank you very
Always
much.
in the booth, Mr. Fantabulous Jeff Graham.
Very excited for the show and very honored to have these two guests in today. It's going to be a
Yes.
great show.
Thanks for having us.
And my two friends that I just introduced. So today what we're going to do is we're going to go over my week as usual. Then we're going to break down what you do when you're getting your content and where to shoot it, why you're choosing people, places, the equipment and people that you will need, and then any kind of wrap-up tips that these two can give us today. And we're going to talk about, on the stories from the set, FP 1 and 2, where I met Jason. Actually, I met him on another film, but that's the first time we actually worked creatively together. It's a very big cult film. If you haven't seen them, you have to check them out. But that's my stories on the set, so stay tuned. But before we do that, we always go into Sean's week. Are you ready?
I don't know if they're ready.
I don't know. They're going to just have to live it.
Lay it
Here
on
we
me.
go.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Sean's Week! Nice.
What do you guys
That
think?
wasn't
I
bad.
love it.
That was, you
There
know.
wasn't applause or anything?
No.
So it
Cool.
couldn't have
No.
been that good?
When you're in entertainment, you see a lot of entertainment all the time. You get numb to it. That's what I say.
Oh, we were so good they were
We
numb.
were so good they were numb.
I hear
That's
that a lot
exactly
about
what it-
myself. Yeah.
That is really what was happening.
So good.
So basically, I told you guys I was doing my sketch show, 3 different sketch shows. And I told you I loved the progression of first week. It was a Sunday afternoon, second week was Sunday evening, and the last one was Saturday night. Really fun crowd. And, you learn the glitches along the way. And what was great is those first 2 shows really taught them what to do, what not to do. And I would say that all of the issues that came up in the first 2 shows were corrected on this last show. Everyone was really strong. Everyone was having a great time. And more importantly, we got some repeat people who had heard about us from before and said, oh, we wanted to come back and bring our friends and stuff like that. I got 2 new students out of it who said, I have never seen anything like this at Playhouse West. When do you guys start again? So I've got a few more sign-ups.
Sean, that's huge.
Yeah, I got 3 new students from people who came and saw the show twice because they were such fans. They were so blown away that it was so consistent. So stay tuned because we are now entering the next phase, which is kind of like a stand-up special. We've done this a few times, and many of my students said, I'm done. I will never do this sketch again. So we're filming them. So like a stand-up special. You know how they do their material for work it out for a year, put on their stand-up special, scrap it, start from scratch, and start all over again.
So they are going to do the material one more time.
One more time on film. So that was really cool. And then yesterday I got to meet with Daria Baron, Sonia Deville, and we worked on her story at the her WWE storyline. She's got a lot on her plate. Really cool, exciting stuff.
Well, she premiered in Total Divas this
Total
week, which
Divas,
is huge.
Yes, and she is got a couple other really cool irons on the fire that needed some creative help. So that's kind of what I did yesterday. We didn't do acting stuff yesterday, but we did. She just needed a creative voice to help her bounce things off of, and we had a really, really good one. But the funniest thing, a friend of mine was saying he has a really fun script, and he said, hey, do you know anyone who, kind of like China, like a wrestler woman? And this was 3 hours before I was meeting her. And I said, okay, I'm putting you guys in touch. He sent me a script. They're going to talk, and, we'll
Come on.
Yeah, no, isn't that the craziest thing? I was interviewing for the Blu-ray DVD of Ugly Sweater Party, another cool, fun cult movie I did. Check that one out as well. And he mentioned it. He's a great guy. He's the one who actually shooting with them inspired me to say, I got to do Crust, because they were doing this cool movie on their own. And it just made me excited and got me home to write it. So good people, hooking up good people is always fun.
That's awesome. I love that.
That was my week. I had an audition today, which went really well. I had some looping, but besides that, the other news is Crust is moving along, and we have more photos of the development of our monster. So
I have not seen photos.
Very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah. I have to show you. I'm really excited. Very cool.
Wow.
They literally just came in right before you walked in the door, so I'll have to show you. So let's jump in. But before we do, we kind of want to figure out about what the audience can do to help us here at AfterBuzz.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. You guys are always amazing in asking us what can we do to give back, because there are 150 hours of content that we bring you for free every single week. So it's pretty simple. What we're looking for: rate, comment, subscribe. What does that look like? Rate, so wherever you are, if you're on Apple Podcast or if you're on YouTube, we want you to give us that 5-star or that thumbs up. Pretty easy. Takes about 2 seconds. And it really helps us with the algorithms. Again, Sean and I, not the math people in the room, but that's what the YouTube's people tell us, so they say. So we'd really appreciate that. Commenting, it lets us know what you guys want us to talk about. We pick our shows based off what it is that you guys are asking, that you want to know from Sean, from his personal career, or advice on your own. So definitely make sure that you're leaving a comment and subscribe so you know when our show is. Also, always trying to build this community in the audience, and it helps us to get more viewers as well, so we'd really appreciate that. As always, every single week I look through the comments and I pull one from any time that we've been doing the show, which has been a year now, Sean?
Yeah, it's
a year?
Yeah.
And I know that, Jeff, I think I sent you a comment that you can read from one of our amazing followers.
You sure did. Longtime listener Sheila, we're so excited to have you back. I love what she said. She said, "This is such a relief. Hearing all of this makes me feel like I'm not getting started too late. I'm currently living exactly in my 2-year period. I'm preparing right now while in college and praying to make my way to LA." So really cool. It just shows, Sean, we're so proud to be associated with the show and the show that we're producing together, because it really provides a lot of opportunities and good advice for actors at any stage in their career.
Yeah, and I've gotten several students recently, like 4 or 5 students just from this podcast.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, which is
so thank you guys
really,
so much.
really great.
Keep up the great work. And if you write a comment, then there is a really good chance that I will read it on this show. If it's on Apple Podcast or YouTube, I'll find it and I'll give you a shout out.
Yes. And speaking of a shout out, Jason and I, that's the worst transition. You
I thought
talked
it
to me
was really
about
good.
transitions.
It's the worst transition so far.
Yeah.
You have
Pump the brakes.
so many
Yeah.
strengths and strong suits, Sean.
I hear a butt coming. I hear a butt
including
coming.
this jacket. It's a strong suit jacket.
But
Everybody needs constructive feedback about the transition.
maybe the transitions,
Smooth.
but
You've
smooth
gone so
transition.
red.
I know. I am embarrassed. All right.
I think you're this is the hammer.
Yeah.
We're
nailing
never
it.
coming back.
Nailing it.
No,
All
it's
right.
not you guys.
So 12 years ago, Jason and I met on a set of an independent horror movie. Me and his family became friends, but that more than just this meeting, because I know we talk about that a lot. And then he met Tallay several years later, and we've all become very good friends. But more than that, I just want to trace, because this is what we're talking about here today and how this has kind of changed Jason's life. Walk us through the history of FP from the idea to doing the short and to where it is now.
Oh, good God. I mean, that's like 20 years.
Yeah.
Let's try to do the paraphrased version of
Yeah.
this. I just out of high school, I started making these shorts called the FP,
Okay.
just on a crappy DV handy cam that my dad
And just
had.
for everybody to know, the FP is short for Fraser Park.
Correct, which is where I grew up.
Where he grew up.
Which is an hour north
of LA. Yeah.
Sean's been there several times.
Oh, yeah.
For better or worse. And so, yeah, I made these for nothing, just with some friends in high school, and it was such a stupid idea of just like, oh, Dance Dance Revolution mixed with hip hop. Like, I just based it on all the idiots in my town and what they spoke like. And I was like, this is funny to me. And I was also like, the OC sucks. I'm going to do the FP.
Right.
That's my gag.
Funny. Right.
And that's where it all kind of kicked off. And then I'd make those all the time, and I'd show people like, my shorts all the time. Like in high school, and everyone's like, whatever. And whatever reason, that was the one people were like, holy crap, you need to develop that one. I'm like, the Dance Dance one? That's the one you guys like?
Okay.
And then I just ran with it, and then I wrote a feature, and someone's like, you wrote a feature of that? And I'm like, yeah, I'm 18. What else am I going to do?
Right.
Living on the mountains.
Yeah.
And then,
That was the dream your whole life. Were you like, I'm going to make movies?
Yeah. Because I'm also, it's like I was born into it basically, because my dad worked in the film business, like my grandparents worked in the film business, my great grandpa. It's like when a cop, it's my dad was a cop, and my dad's dad was a cop.
Right.
I kind of just had to. I grew up on sets, and that's just how it was. And I realized for a long time, it's like I always wanted to be an actor, but then I realized where it's like, well, I have to wear an eye patch because I'm blind in one eye and I'm different, and like I'm probably never going to be cast in anything traditionally, so I'm going to have to learn how to make movies to put myself in them.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So then that was kind of my whole thing with the FP. I was like, well, I could star in this.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
If there's ever a movie where a guy with an eye patch would star in it, it's a post-apocalypse Dance Dance Revolution film. So I guess this is my way in.
And so you made a short first,
yeah,
right?
Well, yeah, basically after that feedback, which you should develop this more, I was like, okay, well, let's do this professionally. And I was like, maybe I should go to film school, maybe I should not. My ex-stepmom really didn't want me going to film school, this and that and other thing. So I kind of coerced her into and my dad to pay me a couple grand to go to some film workshop. And the first day of that, I'm like, this is crap. I don't need this. I know all this already.
You know all this already.
So then I was like, how long is the refund period on that $3,000? And it was 2 weeks. And I was like, I've only been here for a day. I went right home, got that refund, and then made the short for the FP off of that refund with the money for that workshop, which did infinitely more for me than that workshop ever would have done.
Sure.
So yeah.
And then how does that help you fund the feature?
Well, then you have the first 10 minutes, and as you know with the FP, it's such a weird thing. It's like this.
It's a great opening. Such a great opening.
Yeah, but it has its own language and own dialect, and it's its own world. So you can try to explain that to someone on paper all day and night, they're never going to understand it. So it's like, well, let's just shoot the first 10 minutes and see what happens. It wasn't like a short to where it was like, this is the idea. I was like, let's just shoot the first 10 minutes, and if they like that, here's the rest of the movie and a script.
Okay.
So to be clear, you shot a no-budget short, then you used $3,000 to shoot the same short, but with a budget or a little bit of an altered short.
The ones in high school were just crazy ideas, and they were just little OC episodes, little 20-minute episodes of a non-existent TV show.
And you shot them with what?
Nothing. Yes. No, we shot that with a little mini DV camera.
Okay.
You'd buy for $200 at Walmart.
And then the $3,000 was for a legitimate short that you shot.
A legitimate short.
And then after that, you shot 10 minutes of a feature?
No, that short was the 10 minutes of the feature.
That was that.
But that's a good point, because if you're going to shoot something, make sure it's usable. Because there's no point in shooting something that you cannot then use in your greater idea.
Right.
So that you could actually insert into a feature and not have to reshoot that for the feature?
Well, we did reshoot it, because then you start casting your movie, and you're like, well, we're going to cast somebody else now because so-and-so isn't available or whatever.
Right.
And then so you have to reshoot.
To the future.
Yeah, you have to reshoot anyway. But I'm saying with shorts, I would always suggest that make it something usable like that. When someone's like, I'm just going to give a vibe piece, and it's like, okay, but I haven't seen that work. I'm sure maybe it has worked for other people, but generally
what do you mean a vibe piece?
Well, it's they'll be like, this is kind of the vibe of the movie, and they'll shoot something. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but a lot of people...
Like a sizzle reel kind of thing?
Yeah, a sizzle reel. I'm like, I want to see what 5 or 10 minutes of that movie looks like in your mind. And when
so
you have
you're
that,
saying you'd much rather see a played out scene?
I'd much rather see a played out scene or something that's actually applicable, and you should also have a feature script. If you're trying to develop this into a script, because the amount of times I've seen people where they have one of these vibe piece, shorts, and what's the feature? Oh, well, it's kind of like this and that. Wait, you haven't written it yet? then that
Right.
interest you had for that split second is gone, because when you
Right.
have this moment, if you don't have everything to take advantage of it, it's gone.
Right.
So you think that it should be able to stand on its own, but also be applicable for the greater project, which you have more to back up?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. And so where did you get the funding for the feature then?
Oh, for my dad and some other guy.
Okay.
Because you showed them the short?
Because
Yeah.
you showed on the short,
Yeah.
it made sense, right?
Exactly. And then my dad's like, "Oh, I get it now. This is cool."
Yeah. That's
And
great.
There it is.
And that's usually the way it starts, guys. So,
Yeah.
in this business, they say do not invest your own money into your thing. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about taking your house and doing a second mortgage or
No,
anything
don't do
like
that.
that.
Never do that.
We're talking about, a few grand here that's not going to break the bank that you had sitting around that maybe in your savings or something like that. That's not nuts. That's not going to break you, and you could literally get a part-time job and get it back in a year.
What
So-
do you do, though, for anybody who is thinking about asking their family or family friends or whoever it is that's close to them? Did you put together a budget, a business proposal, this short, or did you just say, like, hey, what do you think is the smartest thing for people to do?
I worked the other way. I was like, this is how much my dad's willing to give me. That's the budget. Let's make one based upon what we have, not what we hope we're going to raise.
Okay.
And I'm always a big fan of that, because like you can always have this number in your head what you want to hope that you can raise, but who knows what you're going to get.
Right.
Get some money first and then start figuring out like, okay, well, I have like 20 grand. What do we do with that? How do we make this movie with that? And then that
Right.
educates like how you're going to make the movie from the ground up. It's like, I shouldn't hire expensive actors because we can't afford them.
Right.
I shouldn't like write a movie about a spaceship I don't have because we don't have the spaceship.
Right.
It's to be like, well, I have access to this property that's, one of my family members has, and I know I can shoot there for free. I should make the movie about something that's there because that's the X amount of money I can raise.
Right.
I feel like people don't view it as an art, and like that is what we're talking about. Like it is more of an artistic endeavor when you're starting at this point. The chances of you making money at this point are quite slim. So it's also probably not a good idea to try to rope people in based on points or money they will get back. It's
And
more,
what are points to people who don't know what that means?
it's like your back end payment. So like
Okay.
if the movie sold and like you're a producer, you would be guaranteed a number of points.
Like a percentage point, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Of the profits.
So what you're saying is instead you're asking for a gift or a favor.
I think you're asking for financial support.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people, their parents pay for them to go to college. Your parents could pay for you to make your first movie.
Yeah. So this does dovetail nicely in a wonderful transition. My first tip on here is when you're starting to prep, write to where you have access to shooting. So Jason knew, like Roxy, you just talked about this on another episode, if you guys heard it. You guys knew you had a house, and your short took place in 2 different bedrooms, correct?
Right.
And so you knew you had that, so you wrote with that in mind.
Right.
So write to what you have access with. Jason knew he had his dad's property, some properties around town, right?
A pile of just trash and effects equipment garbage that looked post-apocalypse. So I'm like, well,
Yeah, there you
we
go.
go.
Now we are in the future.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, because I think, Tallay, you really nailed it. We're doing an artistic thing, so we're not doing a big thing with major investments. Permits are tough. So how do we feel about permits? And you didn't need any permits,
Well, no, 'cause
right?
we
Because
shot
of
on
the
private property.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're on a private property, you don't need permits. It also depends on what your state is. Like shooting in Los Angeles is highly expensive, and I would not advise doing anything where you need a permit. That
Right.
would be like if you had a big truck that needed parking on the street while you were shooting in an apartment. Like
Right.
there are different levels of permits.
Okay.
So I just advise, and which you likely won't have. If you have a truck, there's your budget. So
Yeah.
I
So-
would definitely recommend just shooting small.
And what we are talking about here is a crew, and we'll go over the crew a little bit more detail, but of just a few friends, a very minimal amount of people. That's what permits are for. And also when you go into like big businesses that have insurance and things like that they don't. I remember I wanted to go into a restaurant near my house to do this restaurant thing, and I said, just before you open, really quickly, it'll be nice and simple. And unfortunately, they were worried about, well, if we're not here and something happens, they don't want to
Workers'
deal with it,
compensation.
or they want nice big chunk of compensation in case something does go wrong. So private property or people that you know to do favors is the best thing. I know there's a guy who I'm probably going to be working for who works in Michigan. All the films he does are in Michigan. He literally can get his name is Tallay Wickham. He's a really cool guy. And you guys actually were on the red carpet for his latest thing that Jeff told me
AfterBuzz
about. Yeah,
So
remember
we
Jeff?
Guys.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
we
AfterBuzz
guys.
too, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was popcorn talk. I'm not them. But
Well,
anyway,
part of a team.
and it's the big umbrella. So anyway, he is so entrenched in that community. Now the police know him. All the businesses want him to shoot there, and people said to him, "So why don't you come to L.A.?" And he goes, "Why?" I mean, he gets the police station, the police car. I mean, he can get anything he needs because he just stayed in his area and people got to know him.
But that's a good point, because Jason is from California.
Right.
So, it's not in Los Angeles, but it's nearby. But I would say if you're in Michigan, if you're in a small town, use that as your base.
Right.
And if your dream is to get to Los Angeles, start there and get here.
Look, that's also a good point of don't come to Los Angeles with nothing.
Yeah.
If your goal is to come and make movies and you have access to things where you can make a movie first and come out, it's always better to come out with something. If you have something to sell and show for yourself, that's always a better way. Because if you try to do that here, it's never going to happen. It's going to be like, oh, I want to do this one scene in a restaurant like you're talking about. That'll be $10,000 for a day.
Right.
I also, some great advice that I got from our creator, our founder, Keven Undergaro, only deal with what is, right? So I want to go back for a second because you were in a situation where that's amazing that you could talk to your dad and that he could finance your first short. Some people who are listening to this might not be in that similar situation. So you work with what you have, right? So if what you have is your phone and your friends, then that's what you base it off of.
Right.
If you have what you have is your location, that's what you base it off of. If you're able to work and make $5,000 extra that summer somehow because you're busting your butt bartending and that's what you make for your first short, fine, then that's what you have. So only deal with what is. I hope this doesn't deter anybody at home who's thinking that they don't come from any kind of situation, because you can make a movie, you can make a short no matter what situation you're in. I was talking to CM Punk, really famous WWE superstar, today, and he was telling us about how he came from nothing, and that doesn't bother him. A lot of people get sad hearing that, but all he said was, okay, so I knew I had to work for absolutely everything I ever got in my life. And that's just fact. Like, I knew that I wasn't in that situation.
Right, so not looking for pity. Or...
Yeah, well, it's not even about that. It's just deal with what is. If your situation is you come from a family that would either is able to financially support you or morally will, because, a lot of times people have parents that don't support their dreams, even if they have the finances.
My parents were those people. I had to trick them into doing it, and after I tricked them into doing it, then I got their approval.
That's amazing.
And I also made 20 shorts in high school and my technical first feature film that no one's ever seen, like you're saying, with What Is, for nothing. Like, it wasn't like that was my first thing. I was like, I got an idea. I spent 3 years making shorts and movies before I actually got to even get to that point.
And you weighed out the options for yourself.
Yeah.
You thought, okay, should I take this class or do I make this short then? And that's the decision you made. So just deal with what is, be honest with yourself, and then you can move forward no matter what the situation is, as long as you're being truthful about what you have.
Yeah. And then along with that, the places and the access you have, the people that you guys really hammered me on crust recently, and you just kept saying, only get the people who want to be there. Only get the people who truly want to be there. And that's why Roxy is in it, because she's so appreciative and excited and to be a part of something.
I love the project.
She read the script. She liked it. It's not like she hates the script and is like, okay, Sean, I'll do it for you. Well, that would be a weird vibe, and I wouldn't necessarily want that on set, as opposed to somebody who goes, I get it, I like it, and I'm really, I'll do whatever it takes to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
That kind of enthusiasm goes a long way.
The people that want to be there are always going to work harder than the people who don't. And it's usually like, there's been so many scenarios I've been in where it's like, well, you can get the best person in the business that does X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, do they want to do it? Or are they going to be bummed out and complain the whole time and just gonna slow down the process?
Right.
And they're not going to give their best work if they don't want to be there.
Right.
So like even the best person, even if someone tries to like flirt with you and tell you like, well, we've got this, do they want to do it? Because if they're the best and they don't want to do it, they're going to start looking like the worst pretty quick on one of these movies. Like, the people who really want to be there and have something to prove and are excited, always hire them.
How do you identify that?
I think because it's a platform for everyone. So if you have a friend who wants to be a DP, like Jason's brother shot his first film and his sister Sarah was the costume designer, they're both doing so well, but the FP provided them a platform because they weren't being seen. So that's the wonderful thing I think about filmmaking, is it's not just for the director. It is for an entire team of people, and it gives you exposure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how you identify it, especially like, oh, I really want to camera operate and I have an A7S at home. It's like, great, let's try it.
Yeah, yeah. And you get to be seen in whatever, if your makeup is exceptional. Sarah's costumes for the FP were exceptional.
a cult
She had
following,
to,
too.
she had to create this whole weird world, and so that really
Brandon
was
got
great,
into the studio system.
yeah, based
So-
on that as well. I
yeah,
got
all
Brandon
of-
showed the FP to Rob Zombie, and that is how I got into my Rob Zombie movies.
All of the creative heads from the FP have been hired by big people now. Like Sarah got to be working on
Danny
the
McBride.
Dan
McBride.
McBride shows on HBO from the FP.
Our friend Tyler.
Our friend Tyler, who's a production designer on the FP, he got hired by Bill Hader because Bill Hader liked the FP.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
on Barry, so it's like everyone has gotten something from this afterwards.
Yeah. And then very simply, and this makes sense, and you guys brought this up, which I didn't even think of when I was kind of doing a discussion with these guys yesterday. Write to, and explain this further because I might not be saying it right, write to something that you know you can piece together and edit easily when it's done. What do you mean by that?
Okay, well, there's a thing in post that I know it's like a lot of times people are like, oh, let's not think about post until we get there. There's one
Now,
thing.
wait a minute. Before people don't,
Post-production.
post-production means after you're shooting, and then you have to put all the elements together, like editing, sound, things like that.
And while you're shooting, you have to store your footage.
Yes, and you have to store your footage on a thing called a hard drive.
Right.
And now you can't just have one hard drive because if something happens to that one hard drive, your entire movie goes away. So you probably want at least 2 to 3 hard drives.
2 to 3 4-terabyte hard drives.
Oh, well, it all
depends.
depends on what you're shooting on. If you're shooting on like an iPhone and the footage is super compressed or one of these ProRes cameras, and by compressed I mean that's just a smaller file size. If you do that, you can get away with doing like, a 4-terabyte hard drive or something for your whole movie. And a lot of people, they struggle because of like, oh, my buddy's got a Red or an Alexa. It's like, how much money do you have? Because your hard drives are going to cost so much because the footage is not compressed. And you're looking at like a minute of footage is, 10, 20 gigabytes. So
Red
like,
and Alexa being the cameras that
Yes.
the friends have.
Yeah.
So if you have that, all of a sudden it's like you're looking at, oh God, I'm going to shoot like, I don't know, let's say you shoot 10 hours for your movie or 5 to 10 hours of footage. You're looking at like thousands of dollars of hard drives versus if you shoot on a smaller camera, it's a couple $100 and your movie's stored safely
Right.
and everything's fine.
Right, and something that you can edit and piece together that makes sense. So you're shooting in a way that you knew you were shooting around the FP, so you had the whole feel of the place and what you wanted to do, so it chops together well. You got to know your night shoots, your day shoots, things like that. Don't all of a sudden throw in a major, don't put in anything in your movie that you don't think you can edit in easily. If you're gonna have
night shoots are terrible. I suggest avoid them on your first movie if at all possible.
Yeah.
And if you want to shoot at night, do splits, which means if you're going to shoot 12 hours, start at noon and go to midnight. Because the second you do nights with your crew on a small movie, everybody's dead.
It's too tiring.
It's too tiring. But
It
then
is
also
too
you have to
tiring.
afford these things called lights because there's no light at night, and it's going to be a whole thing.
That makes it harder. So just keep it easy. All we're
Yeah.
saying, guys, is just keep it easy for yourself. Easy cameras, people who want to be there, easy locations. So let's talk about the people and the equipment that they bring. The first thing in general, expand on the community. Doug brought that up in our find your creative community. Now it's your shooting community. It's the camera person, the sound person, and a lot of these people might have their own stuff. So your director of photography, the guy who's going to be physically shooting the camera, might have lights, might have a decent camera, might have a camera that's going to have easily compressed and hard drives. So you want to look with people for that, and again, pick people who want to say, oh, this would be great for my reel as a director, this would be great for my sound as a director.
What are you doing in what order? Are you finding your actors first, making sure that you find dates that they can do, and then figuring out who can work set from there? Or are you finding your director first and then making sure that they have their crew they're comfortable with on dates, and then plugging in actors from there? What's the order?
I mean, there's a lot of variables here.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on what you do. Me personally, since I'm a director, I'm not looking for a director. So if anyone's out there that's a director, they're probably going to hire themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But I like to write my scripts for at least the core, like the main roles. I like to write them for people that I know, like in my
Right.
circuit of actors that I work with or people I know, or it's like Sean will be like, hey, I've got this student who's really great, you should, check him out or something. Okay,
Right.
cool. I like to write those main things for people I know that exist, not like, God, I hope I find this person auditioning.
Right.
And you can do that when you go down the road and you get a lot of money and time and all these things, but I think in your first movie, write it to somebody you know, at least your like lead or two, because
Yeah.
these people are going to have to go through hell with you, and like you need to know that.
And
so-
that's kind of the premise that I'm following for just this thing, is that you have your idea, you have your friends who want to act in it. Now we're trying to build a community.
It should really be the slightly more professional version of when you're in high school and you just grab a camera with your buddies and you make something.
Right.
But you're just doing that to the slightly more professional level.
Right.
But I think it's good to like get your actors if you have people in mind. But my most important position is our DP, because without that person, I can't shoot a film.
Right.
So I like to find out, that is the person I will move hell and high water for.
Right.
And then most actors are super accommodating because they are the vision. So
Right.
they will likely fit in with you, especially if you're in Los Angeles, as you know,
Right.
there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
So for me, it's crew. I like to make sure our key crew positions are filled. But I will have already sussed out our actors who we like.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's and DP. Just remember, guys, is director of photography, the cameraman. So that's taken care of there. I said on here, do not have a crazy big camera and all that stuff, and addressing the hard drive. If you want to do it yourself, and very simply, Jason's had a great advice yesterday: buy a tripod.
Yeah.
Buy two.
Oh, there's several times in my movies where I have literally, because I'm in them as well, I hit the record button, I run into the scene,
Yeah.
do it, run out, press cut.
And
Yeah.
that's what there's
Sometimes you have
also-
to do that.
And there's really good sound equipment now as well that's not really that expensive, that just plugs into the camera. So you just have a lav mic. So when you hit record, it does everything for you. So if it's just a little scene with dialogue, it's very, very effective.
You talked about yesterday not possibly eliminating a sound person. What was your idea? Was that what your idea was?
Yeah.
That is the idea, and I would say
And a lav mic, guys, is little. It's a little mic that you clip onto your shirt.
Or you can also tape it
Yeah.
under.
I would suggest, even if it's a buddy who isn't necessarily a sound guy, but if you just have somebody in your first movie to deal with sound, because you're going to be dealing with so many other things, sound is a funny business to where it's like you want to make sure you have another set of eyes looking at that, because if you don't, when you get to the editing process and like, oh, all the sound's bad, then you have to ADR it, which means basically you have to dub it, which you bring the actors in, you have to re-record them over the lines, and it can be really hard sometimes. So
You
I would
wanna
say
make
on your
sure that's
first movie,
taken
have
care of.
somebody, even if they're not like a professional sound person, that's at least running that and looking at it.
And hearing it just to
hearing
make
it.
sure it
Yeah.
sounds
A
good.
lot of DPs also know like basic sound.
Yeah.
Or just, if your DP just has like some headphones on, they're plugged into the camera, and he's like, okay, cool, I heard it.
Yeah, sounds great.
Just have somebody listening to it. That's because I've done it a couple times where I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's great. Just press that button.
Yeah.
That didn't record, and we moved on.
Right.
Great.
Then the other important person that you definitely need is your producer/AD, which is probably going to be the same person on a small person. This is just the person who's going to coordinate, organize. This is kind of Tallay's specialty that she does. And they get the helpers and the assistants. They should help actors, you were saying yesterday, in terms of scheduling. Talk about scheduling. Like, let's say you want to say, this is when my DP's available. And you were saying, don't be silly, schedule your actors in a common sense way. Can you expand on what that meant?
Yeah, so I mean, don't shoot in sequence. If you have an actor there for 10 pages and your script is 30, you schedule it around your characters. So you want to get someone, it's called shot out. So
Right.
basically we want to bring an actor in for the quickest time possible and get all of their scenes done. It will save you money as well. The last thing you want is a 3-week shoot with an actor. You pay them, I believe, if you're paying them, you pay them for the days they are there.
Right.
Also, if they're doing you a favor, let
Yeah.
them go and be with their family or
Yeah.
go on a date.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah.
if you're shooting all of this in one location or everything's where around, like on the FP movies, for instance, a lot of actors, like people be like, God, how long were they in it? And it's like 2 days. Because
Right.
literally we would shoot every scene of theirs in the movie, just run around the property to different locations and different spots, shoot them out for the entire movie, which can be a little complex, but it saves you money, it saves time. And if people are doing you favors, I'd rather be a pain in the ass to somebody for a weekend as
Yeah.
opposed to like, can you come up here for like 20 different days and like work
Right.
for half an hour? And
Right.
Yeah.
Can you describe what you meant by you believe if they're there for a day, you pay them? As opposed to what?
Like if you have a budget and an actor is there with their time, I always put room in that's my other job, is if I have money, working out a budget. So if they're there, I like to pay them if we have room, which you won't in your first. But that's time. Time is money. And I mean, there are so many reports now that time is our most valuable resource.
Right.
So if they're there, I like to pay our actors.
Yeah. Also, like referring, because the juxtaposition of this is like when you're on the giant movies, like the $100 million superhero movies and things. I've had friends who've been on those, and like they're literally they get shot probably 4 or 5 days in the entire movie, but they're there in their trailer for 4 months.
Yeah.
And they're just getting
That's what
they
happened
get
on
paid like a
Twister.
blanket fee, and they just sit there in their trailer and just like, am I going to work
And
this
so
week?
on a
So you
smaller
mean if they're
movie.
there
If they're there,
physically,
you get
not
paid.
if they're on set.
Yes, or
You
on
mean-
call,
yeah.
because they can also be back at their apartment on a big movie, and like we're saying, if you're physically there, you get paid.
I never have someone on call usually. Also,
Yeah.
just because of where we shoot, we usually shoot out of LA, and if someone's on call, it's going to take them like at least an hour, maybe 4 with traffic.
Yeah.
Well, then the other thing that you need is just people to help you. That helps the organizer, the producer, or assistant director. And the most important thing, we were talking about this yesterday. There's a study out that said if you give someone a raise in their office, they will appreciate it for 3 months. But if you give a lifestyle and culture that's friendly and positive, and that's why Google has all the really cool, they were the first to kind of do the really cool campus and the fun stuff. So one thing that people really, really want is food and water.
Coffee.
Food, water, and
Coffee.
coffee. Yeah, food, water, and coffee. Just make sure people are fed, and it doesn't have to be amazing catering. You know, I think if you say, oh, we could get Subway, or this is really cool, you know, sub place that's in town that makes better ones for a couple extra dollars, you go, oh, we're going to treat you to that really cool sub place and get some really cool sandwiches, and you can do everything that you normally would because it's such a small group. You can ask if they have dietary restrictions or anything like that, and just take care of them in the most basic way, and man, that goes a long way.
And a lot of it is grab and go, because if you have so much to shoot, like on a, you know, non-union, it's after 6 hours, you have to have a 30-minute break. But if this is with friends, you know, a lot of it is grab and go. In my experience, people would rather just get it done than, you know, sit down to like a nice meal.
Oh, right,
so think
because
like
their
protein
time.
bars, bananas, like anything I can put in a cooler as well and transport easily
And
with
like
us.
nice sandwiches too, because you
Yeah.
can walk and eat while you're
Yeah.
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 You don't want to do like a full sit down.
sitting down with the fork and the knives and the plates
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
that. when
yeah.
you're- and then like where are you sitting because you haven't set up tables because you didn't even think of that because you're trying to get your shot done and
Right,
yada
right.
yada yada's.
Yeah. No, and that's the other thing. And then I believe just water and coffee. Man, that
And on
goes
our
a long
last shoot,
way.
like our special effects makeup artist had huge dietary restrictions. So I just gave her a budget and was like, you just take care of yourself.
Right.
And that worked out really well.
Right.
Yeah, we
right.
just gave her money for groceries and we're like, get whatever you need. Here you go.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's the other thing about these people. They should want a reason. You know, it's always good to have a why, because as Jason said, if you cajole somebody or force them to be there, then they're not going to run around. And when they say, oh, shoot, we got the wrong sandwich for that woman who's got the dietary thing, they'll be like, great, I'll jump in the car and drive down there, you know, and take care of that. How did you guys take care of each other on your little short that you did at the house? I mean, it was just friends,
Yeah,
right?
but it was
So-
great. The person's mom, whose house we were using, said, I'd be honored to cook everybody lunch, which was really
so
adorable.
sweet.
And
I
she
love
made this like really great stew soup thing, and we kind of all took it in cups and drank it while we
Yep.
went.
Yeah,
which
grab and
was-
go.
which was great. And there were power bars on set too, and cookies, and so that was and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, with
Sugar
the
and coffee go a long way.
Yeah, it was so nice because it was delicious and it was nutritious, and so you don't feel like you're crashing afterwards
Yeah.
while you're on
Right.
set. And she offered to do it, and that was like what she wanted to contribute, so it was free, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It's not you don't have to spend a lot of money, guys. You can go to, again, Subway or Costco and
Well,
get
on our
very
one,
cheap
I mean,
stuff.
I like that you said that. When I'm producing on a really low independent, I view myself as kind of like the mom of the set, because it is my job to make sure everybody is safe. And on the first FP we did together, we literally got a slow cooker and a sandwich toaster. And just the fact people could toast a sandwich,
Wow.
They were so excited, I'm sure.
so excited.
Yeah, well, you had
Yeah.
this whole build your
I had
own
a whole-
sandwich set up. It's like the different breads. There's gluten free, regular bread,
Yeah,
different
yeah.
meats, like all the condiments and options, and a whole like lineup. And
It's thoughtful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's thoughtful,
and that's
and-
kind of why I love doing it, because I mean, no one's going to be doing one thing
Right.
on the set.
Yeah,
You
that-
know,
that's
you're
another
just-
thing. When you're making this little movie, it's like you and your 5 crew members. You need to have people that can also they don't necessarily need to be a specialist in all these different fields, but have people that can entertain the idea at least that they want to be able to do 5 jobs at once, because you're going to have
Yeah.
to.
It's a hustle, guys.
Yeah.
It's a hustle. It's a grind. You're doing something for free and out of passion. This is just like putting on our sketch show. I get paid for teaching the class. I don't get paid for the rehearsals or any of that kind of stuff, but I don't want to put on a crappy show. So that I got my name on as a director. And so, I do all that stuff for free. But you do that stuff. Even Daria and I were talking about that yesterday at this level. And even as you are successful, you do a lot of things for free in this business, and this is just another way to get exposure, and more importantly, I feel so strongly about this, is you're networking with meeting new people and getting new opportunities. And you said your little short, all these people that launched their careers.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the amount of jobs we have to do. I'm like, the amount of times that I've been still in costume with blood on me or whatever, haven't even gotten to makeup, and have to drive to the grocery store to then make sure we have enough water and snacks and things for the next day, and you're just walking down the aisle pushing that cart and you just look like a maniac. And it's it doesn't matter, it's 2 a.m, but
if we look at the timeline of FP short to FP1 to FP2, I mean, there was a big gap between FP1 and 2.
Yeah. Right.
Timeline wise or finances or gap?
Timeline wise, I guess
Yeah.
it was 7 or 8 years between 1 and 2.
Wow.
I made 4 movies in between.
Yeah. And Jason just said, I really want to do FP2, but I don't know who's kind of out there.
Yeah.
And that's when we started tapping in, and we're like, oh my God, this movie has
a nice,
larger
strong fan
following than we even thought.
Where did you guys put it, the movie?
The first one?
Yeah.
The first one, we got it into South by Southwest Fantastic back when Fantastic Fest was linked with South by Southwest. And Fantastic Fest is this really big genre. It's the biggest genre festival in North America. And then through that, Alamo Drafthouse, they started the Alamo Drafthouse films, and we were their first big release that they did with that, because they got their festival and all that. So then they released it like it was a big movie, it came out in theaters, it came out.
But how did you guys do that? You emailed?
We knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody that got it to South by Southwest.
Wow.
But that's a whole other.
It also took. It was 3 or 4
different podcasts. I'm just curious.
It was 3 or 4 years in post of it just sitting there, and then finally somebody saw it. Was like, I know a guy, so it just sat there for that long.
You are signing away that film,
Right.
That's no longer Jason's property. So with the second one, we decided to do it ourselves.
Right.
So
So
we
you keep the
self-distributed, and it's on Amazon.
And this is a whole other
Prime.
podcast, but then you learn when you do all these movies and you go around the world to all these film festivals and you distribute movies with all these different distributors, you learn how to do it yourself, and that's a whole other thing.
We'll talk about that.
Don't do that in your first one unless you have to, because you need to learn certain
But there
things.
are so many streaming services that you can put your own movie on.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend. It's submit to festivals.
Yeah.
Because if you can get someone to support your short,
Guys,
they're
you
going to
could
support
put-
your
you
In
could
the
feature.
put
opposite
your-
order of that, correct? Because you can't submit to festivals once you have put it on a distribution platform.
True.
That's
Right.
correct, yeah.
Right. Then other quick tips. We talked a little bit about insurance. We talked about everybody doing one more job. And then just a very strange tip, but Tallay, tell us about the really quickly, the not sending a call sheet.
There's a risk in non-union jobs where if you send a call sheet, if somebody is a member of a union, that they can then submit that to their union. And depending on your project, a union can come out after you and your project. So I just advise sending an email with really clear instructions, a link to how you get somewhere, a map inserted. And that is how I would advise for a small film to do a call sheet.
So you don't have any.
And I've also worked with
red
bigger
tape.
production companies, non-union, who refuse to send out call sheets for that exact reason.
Wow.
And somebody can't submit this to their union?
That's correct, because
email?
it's not an official call sheet.
Wow.
Isn't that a great tip?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. So,
Otherwise,
that
you can have that
is-
angry grip that's union. He's like, I'm going to flip this thing right now. And all these kids are like, well, we're doing it because we
Yeah.
want. And he's like, I need my hours.
I mean, your friends and family are very unlikely to be part of a
Yeah,
union
of course.
at that point. That's just like a tip.
But it's a good tip, but
Just
if you
in case.
run into different circles. So we've been talking a lot about the FP, and so that is my story from the set. I just really want to tell the story of my first time there. Jason and I had met on this movie. He said, there may be a part for you. You were throwing around a couple ideas, and then you
How
said,
do you feel about being in a dress?
Yeah, and then you said, how do you feel about being a dress? I said, it'll be great. And it's kind of a surprise. The surprise is that you hear this guy in a trailer, and he sounds like the beer drinking, wife beater T-shirt, yelling at his daughter the whole movie, and Jason's character finally says, enough. I don't want to hear her being abused by her mean drunk father anymore. She goes over there, and I emerge. And the great thing was, they said,
And you're the father, or you're...
I'm going to be the father, but I'm in drag. Right? But when I went to do drag, there you go.
There it is.
When I got to the set, Sarah, I thought, okay, I got to get my dress or whatever it is. And Sarah just handed me a little panties, a little bra, and a little negligee jacket. And I thought, all right, I'll do it. And I threw it on there. They gave me crazy makeup. And the only thing I wanted to say was, can I have my left breast exposed? And they said, sure, why not? So, I actually came back in FP2, and when I came on that set, I actually did have a dress, but my breast was exposed. But this was all now fan-based and fan-funded. So when I walked onto that set, the fans went nuts. They were so crazed that my character
The fans
was
were
back.
there?
Yeah, because they're helping the Indiegogo.
That's another.
That was a
whole
that
other
was a whole
podcast.
other podcast about that. But that was just an amazing experience. And Jason let me completely improvise stuff and gave me complete freedom. And I thought, wow, these guys are great. I want to work with them a lot. And
you are.
And we are. And we've remained friends. And
You've been in every single one of my movies except one.
Yeah, which one was that?
How to Save Us in
We shot that
Australia.
in
That's right,
Australia.
because it was shot in Australia. Yeah, that's right.
And we couldn't afford
But
to
yeah,
fly
I've
there.
always been in every single one, and I love doing them because they're always fun. And Jason said, actually, on his last movies, people said, FP2, how many times did you have people improvise? And you said none, except Sean Whalen.
Just Sean. that hour, that half an hour to hour that we shot with Sean was it.
Yeah, it was great. And I'll tell you what, I felt more insecure driving up to shoot that and Sheena, my girlfriend, was like, why are you so nervous? I go, I just don't want to suck in the movies because I love the FP so much. I don't want to suck in the FP too. She's like, these are your friends, dude. And I said, I know, but there was almost like more of a pressure.
Yeah, but you
know
don't suck, so you wouldn't suck.
No, I know, but you just want to kill it. You know what I mean? You just
Especially
want
had
to
like
kill
the
it.
20 fan onlookers.
Yeah, exactly.
What's
You're
he gonna
walking-
say?
Right.
What's he gonna say?
Yeah, the fans were there, like staring at you. But luckily, I had fun, and it worked out really well, and it was really great. So, I mean, that's.
Well, we surprised them with that too.
Yeah, no, it was a total surprise. So, in general, this is kind of the nuts and bolts about how you get started, expanding on the idea of community and great attitudes and passion for the project. And these are the nuts and bolts on how you break it down. And if you guys have any questions about this, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, ask us a question, and we can deal with it. This is just the beginning of the create your own content, guys. I'm going to do with plays, sketch shows. We're going to go through how to make the whole movie and crowdfunding, the whole thing. So this is just the beginning, but this is the new way. So where can we find you, Roxy?
Everywhere at Roxy Striar.
How can we find you guys on social media? Is there a...
Well, I'm at the JTro on Twitter.
At the JTro on Twitter.
I think I'm Jason W. Trost on Instagram.
There you go.
Jason Trost on Facebook fan page is where I'm most active.
Yep, Mr. Funtabulous. Is he there?
I am here. Yes. Multitasking. You guys, as you should do on a set, right? You guys can find me at Jeffrey C. Graham.
Yes, and I am Tallay.
Oh, I go through the FP.
Okay, at that guy SMW, and you can join me on Facebook at Sean Whalen Peeps. And as always, thank you for letting me be part of your journey.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.